New videos every day.
Now before we get started, we're going to play a little game. I want you to visualize in your mind what a person would be or what a person would look like if they were alive. So think about it, get that image in your head, really just visualize it, close your eyes if you have to, and really think about what it means for someone to be alive. Pause the video, don't look at other people's comments, I want to know what you think. What you think of when you think of the word alive. Now this is our fourth video about stress, and the first one we did was the foundation of stress. The second one was how drugs affect your stress levels and affect your body. The third one was how nutrients and nutrient deficiencies affect your stress. And then so today we're doing the fourth video, and we actually did those videos in that order for a reason, because you first have to know what stress is, and then second, if your drugs are causing your stress, it doesn't really matter what treatment you do, what therapy you do, what stress management tools or techniques you use, because it's never going to solve the issue if you keep continuing to take a drug that's causing your stress. So that was video number 2. Video number 3 was nutrient deficiencies, and the same thing. If you have nutrient deficiencies that are not addressed, it doesn't really matter what management tools, what techniques, what stress relieving tips you use. If they're not addressing the nutrient deficiency in the first place, it's not going to help. And so today we're talking about the fourth video, and it's another aspect of stress, and it's very crucial to managing your stress. It's very crucial to the health of your whole body. And what is that? Well, stay tuned. Now the reason why I had you visualize what alive meant to you is because I want to make a point. And if you were to think about what alive is, you might have thought of someone jumping in victory, or someone playing a sport, or someone being in some kind of motion, being active. Well, that's what life is. Life is motion. Life is being active. And I'd be real surprised if someone said alive meant to them, an obese person on the couch, stuffing their face with potato chips, and not moving. Like, I don't think that many people would have had that image in their minds. And that's because when there is a lack of motion, that's really what death is. So when our bodies die, there is absolutely no activity, there's no motion going on, and that's what death is. And that is the difference between being alive and being dead, that there is motion and then there's not motion. So life is motion. And if you were to look at the animal kingdom, there are actually animals that if they are in a stressful situation, if they perceive a threat and they are able to run away, they will actually play dead in hopes that that threat will, lose interest in them. And when that, whether you're playing dead or whether you are dead, that is a lack of motion. Now we've talked about in previous videos that the stress response that your body goes through is called the flight or fight. So basically, when you are stressed, your body is preparing you to fight, which of course involves a lot of motion, or flight, so running away, which also involves a lot of motion. So what do you think happens when you're stressed, your body's preparing you for motion and to fight or flight, and then you just sit there and you just do and you're stressed and you think about why you're stressed and you don't move? So stress is preparing you for motion, and if you don't move, you just stew in your stress. So stress is an emotional response, and isn't it interesting that the word emotion has motion in it? And that's because the emotions that we experience are preparing us for motion. And if we experience some of these emotions and we don't move, we are going to have problems. Something triggers your stress response, and with the stress response, which is an emotional response, you have anger or fear or anxiety. And those emotions are preparing your body for motion. So you either do something with those emotions or you stay stressed. If a guy is angry and he punches the wall or he throws something, in my experience, what I've seen is people say that they feel better after that because it relieves some of that tension. So what do you think would happen the next time you get fearful or you have anxiety? If you go for a run, don't you think that would help you feel better? Now, I know in our society it's not okay to beat up the guy in front of you because he cut you off, but what do how would you feel if you were able to go home and you had a punching bag and you were able to exert all your built up energy into that punching bag, or relieve your anger and your buildup of tension on a racquetball court? Don't you think you would feel better? I think so. Now, unfortunately, most people, when they're stressed or have a stressful day, a lot of times they come home and take it out on their friends or their loved ones. So, they come home from a stressful day and they get in an argument with their spouse or loved one, and basically they're just relieving the stress on that other person. Well, then what does the wife or what does the spouse do? Well, it initiates their stress response. So then you have this, argument, or you have this, very stressful episode going on, and to resolve that, all the person had to do when they came home from a stressful day was punch a punching bag or go for a jog or exert some kind of energy. Don't you think that would have been a better solution? Now, there's this concept in psychology and philosophy, and it's called sublimation. And basically what that is taking an instinct or an impulse and redirecting it. So if you have an impulse to, you have a sexual desire for something that's not appropriate, or you are angry, you can take that emotion and that impulse and direct it into something productive. So say, for instance, if you had a job where you're a construction worker and your job is to demolish buildings, well, that job would come in very handy if you were angry, because not only would you be being productive at your job, but you're releasing and you're relieving that tension because your body is meant for motion when you're stressed. So basically that's what sublimation is, and you can do that when you're stressed. Redirect that stress into something that's productive. And it's not going to help when you're stressed yelling at your wife or yelling at your husband. That's not doing anyone any good. So there's lots of ways that you can be in motion and relieve your stress. So you can go for a run, you can go hiking, you can box, you can, hit the bowling pins with the bowling ball and hear them smash apart, or you can play tennis or racquetball. I mean, there's tons of sports and tons of ways to be active, and you can just really pick and choose according to what you like. But the goal and the motive of this video is to point out that when you're stressed, you need to be active. You need to be in motion. So if you were to talk to a mechanic would say if you have a vehicle and you're not driving it, the car will actually begin to break down. It can start to erode, it can start having rust, and they will say to you that if you have a car that you don't drive that often, really the best thing you can do is start driving it more often, because that's going to prevent that early breakdown of the parts. So it's actually very similar to the human body. You can kind of view our bodies as the vehicles of consciousness. We have these vehicles and we're supposed to move. We are supposed to be active and be in motion. And the same thing that happens with a vehicle, if you don't drive it, it begins to break down. The same thing happens with us. We either use our bodies like they were intended to be used, be in motion, or we begin to break down. Now, there is definitely more to this topic, but we're actually out of time today. We are going to do a follow-up video on tips and ways to relieve your stress. So go ahead and use that mouse motion and click on the rate button and rate the video, and leave your comments and suggestions. I love reading what everybody says on the comment board. And take care. I'll see you next time. Bye.